I don't care if you think you're the most stubborn person on earth, this video is going to change your mind. These are 7 European habits I've adopted as an American living in Spain. Hey guys, I'm Danielle. I'm 21. I've been living in Madrid, Spain for a little over a year now, and I've been traveling throughout Europe for the past year and a half. And whether I find myself in the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Austria, it doesn't matter. These are some European habits that have been following me around that I never would have ever considered doing in the US. Let's get into it. Number one, I've been staring at people. I was recently talking to a Belgian friend of mine about this, and I told her that when I was in the US, I wasn't really looking at anyone else. I just didn't want to start a conversation. I don't want to have to deal with the BS niceties of like every single time that I walk past someone down the street. Like, ew, no. Or even worse, if you know someone or know someone by affiliation, like if they're in your class, or if you saw them in a lunch hall recently, or you had like a minor interaction with them, and you now have to do this awkward, like, oh, hi, how are you? Are you doing well? So great to see you. Okay, bye now. Kill me. Like, awful, terrible. I would rather go mute. And honestly, so I did. For most of the time that I was living in the US, unless I was out with friends and I was in a really social mood and just looking for entertainment, I wouldn't be actively looking around and looking for different people. I'm right now kind of raw dogging life because I'm not wearing lenses and I need glasses. So sometimes I would literally just leave the house and not even wear glasses, not even wear contacts, and let my blindness just help me out in that regard. But something that I've learned about myself since coming to Spain is that I actually am starting to stare at people. And I used to find this to be so rude, but my Belgian friend kind of opened my eyes about this. And she was like, yeah, I feel like in the US, everyone is so egotistical and everyone is just so self-centered that it makes sense that you're not looking at anyone else. In Europe, we care a lot more about the community and what people around us are doing and how they are. So we're constantly looking around and just seeing how they are. And then she just gave the most innocent example of like, if I see a girl walking down the street, I'm gonna look at her because I really like her outfit. And she could think I'm the world's worst bitch because, oh my gosh, why is this girl looking at me? But in reality, it's like, no, this is the highest form of compliment I can pay you, just staring at you. And it's that mentality shift that I've started to adopt because now when I see someone that is rocking a killer outfit, I'll regard them for like a solid 3, 4, 5 seconds and just keep going on about my day. Number two, this could just be my generation. I'm Gen Z, but cafe culture. I really started to get into cafe culture. When I was in the US, granted, I was studying neuroscience, which is a very intensive course. And when I was in high school, I had so many different extracurriculars and I was always doing extra things on the weekend, so I wasn't thinking about it. But I never actually sat down and just had a coffee or a tea or just a drink at a cafe with no one else there or with a journal or with a book. I would view it as such a time waster because I could be doing so many other things in the day. Like I recently talked about the work-life balance culture in the US versus in Spain. And in that video, I mentioned that I fainted and I got mad at myself because I fainted and I missed work. Cafe culture always felt the same to me. It's like, why would I waste an hour of my day, 2 hours of my day just sitting and doing nothing when I could be doing anything else besides that? And something that I've started to do a lot more is I'll just go to a cafe. Sometimes I'll bring a journal, sometimes I won't, or sometimes I'll bring my laptop and I'll just work, I'll sit, I'll drink my coffee, I'll really taste it. And it's given me so much more of an appreciation, not only for coffee, but for this cafe culture. Because I'm now speaking to the owners of these different cafes. I'm now building rapport with some of the regulars. And in Spain, the community is very much surrounded upon the idea of family. You just feel like you're part of something. And I feel like cafe culture does kind of play a role into this. Number three, taking the weekends off for emails. When I first moved out here, I was genuinely appalled at the fact that every university, every government official, anything that in the US we would consider to be important, they didn't answer anything past 5 p.m. on a Friday. I remember when I first moved out here and I first applied for the visa, I was emailing the government questions because I was asking, when is this going to be done? When can I get my visa? Etc., etc. And I noticed consistently that they would answer me Monday around 11 and later, and no later than 4 or 5 p.m. on Friday. And it could just be the government official I had, of course, but even those offices are closed on the weekends. And it's the same thing with the universities. They're super helpful during the week, but good luck getting a hold of them on the weekends. And this definitely does play a role in the work-life balance that Spain has mastered versus the US. And I really like it, and I've started to do it, and it's something I never would have considered in the States. Like Monday through Sunday, I would be doing something. I would always be doing something regarding work. It didn't matter that it was a Sunday. Half of us don't even rest on that day. In fact, the only thing thing I ever remember changing on Sunday was that Chick-fil-A was closed. Everyone that I knew who worked was still working. All of my student friends were still studying. We were always doing something. You didn't have that full rest day. And at least out here in Madrid, Sunday is a proper rest day. Like even supermarkets close. Number 4, natural makeup. I don't know if you can tell right now, but I am not wearing a lot of makeup. I have mascara on my eyes, lip gloss on my lips, and I don't even know what it's called, if it's foundation or if it's concealer, but I put this powder on my chin to basically cover up some of my acne. And that's it. And even though in the US, I was never one for dressing up and wearing a ton of makeup, like I think the most makeup I've ever worn in my entire life was to my high school prom. And I literally looked like this. Everyone said I looked like a weird Barbie doll, like I didn't look like myself. But there was always that sense of I could be doing more when it came to my makeup in the US, because I would be so used to seeing these really huge eyes, these really big lip displays, just girls going all out when it came to their makeup routine. Like you could definitely tell that they put in the time. You could not see a single pore on their face. But out here in Europe, it doesn't matter where I am. I've noticed that consistently speaking, it's a very clean, very natural, very minimalistic look. And I really, really appreciate it, because it's not to say that you can't wear it at all. And there's definitely no judgment if you want to wear it, but there's also no pressure to wear it. So it's literally just this clean aesthetic, and I love it. Number 5, nightlife. This is specific to Madrid, Spain, but if you are in your early 20s or even honestly your early 30s, depending on the friend groups that you have, get ready to go to bed at 7:30 or 8 a.m. Anything before that, you are the grandma. Like you have aged. When I first moved out to Spain, good luck. Good luck getting me outside the house. For the first 2.5 months I was here, I was a hermit. I would genuinely get back at midnight and think, oh my gosh, I am exhausted. I am beat. 4 months later, I was coming back at 7:30 in the morning. As an American, we view coming back from a party, coming back from a club as super, super late if it's 2 a.m. I have specific memories of university when we would go house hopping to different basement parties. And as we were walking back home, we would say, oh my gosh, we just had such a great night. It's already 2 a.m. In Madrid, you don't go out until 2 a.m. Like you're not getting ready to leave the house until 2 a.m. And this is such a different mindset shift that I never actually expected myself to take up. Because again, if you know me, you know I am very strict on my routine. Like I wake up at the same time every day. I do the same morning routine every day. I have a very set schedule for myself. I like consistency. So it feels so ironic when I do go out, because I will still be the grandma in the group. I'll come back at 5:30 or 6, but I'll still wake up at 7:30. Like I won't let that change my routine. And I don't care how type A you think you are. We are all people at the end of the day. So unless you actually don't want friends and you don't want a social life, you are going to have to adopt some of these cultural shifts. And in the beginning, I'm not going to lie, it's going to feel really weird. It's going to feel really uncomfortable. You're going to feel like crap. Like I'm not saying getting an hour or 2 hours sleep is okay. It's definitely not healthy or sustainable, but it's something that gets easier as you go on. When you are going out, it's not like you have to put on a face, you have to put on a show. You can kind of just be, let the vibes flow, and it's a super chill way to spend a night, even if it is 5 in the morning. Because I could just be projecting from my own bad experiences in the US, but I always remember that when I would go out to these basement parties or just out with friends, if we were to do a friend group hangout, I would always feel so exhausted at the end of the night, even though it was only 2 a.m., but because I just felt so drained from the company. Like I felt like I had to make sure that everyone was okay. No one felt left out. No one felt triggered. No one felt insulted. I had to make sure that I was pretty much walking on eggshells to make sure that the group dynamic was fine. And out here in Spain, it again could totally just be a people I was hanging out with thing. It could be a me thing and that I've grown, but we're now able to have conversations like, hey, I didn't like this. And they say, okay, cool. And then you're fine. Like the next second, you're fine. Versus in the States, if you had that kind of disagreement, then the group would literally divide. Or you would go home early, or another person would go home early. It would turn into this big dramatic event. Like we're very, very dramatic. And out here, I just haven't noticed that social pressure to be putting on a show. So it makes staying out later easier. And I honestly just never thought I would adopt this habit. Number 6, we're cordial no matter what. There are so many different factors that play into this next point. So I don't want to limit it to just one thing. This could be how I was raised, the community I was in. Like I've done a lot of growing since I've moved out here, but a habit that I've really had to hone is putting aside my personal feelings if I don't like someone and remaining super cordial. When I was in the US, if I didn't like someone, I wasn't gonna say, yo, go fuck yourself if I saw them walking down the street. I just wouldn't pay them any attention. And if, for example, they were a mutual friend of one of my friends and I saw them in person, we wouldn't acknowledge each other's existence. They would just say hi to their friend would say hi to them, and then they would leave. But out here, even if people aren't fans of other people, they don't ignore their presence. They don't go out of their way to make them feel unwelcome. They're not going to obviously start up a conversation and ask them how they are because they don't care, but they're also not going to be rude about it. It could very much just be the high school mentality because when I left the US, I was 20. So relatively speaking, I was still very young in terms of my mentality, but I would remember friend groups gossiping about someone that they didn't like. I would remember seeing them laugh if they saw someone in the streets and they were like, oh my gosh, what is she wearing? Like it was very Mean Girls vibes, just not as cinematic. We didn't care how we affected the other person's mental state, and it was something very normal that I had to grow up with, that moving out to Spain, I almost expected it to be the same thing. But then I had a falling out with a friend of mine, and she was out with one of her friends whom I had never met before, but I saw them in a bar. The friend said hi to me because in Spain, everyone's very social. I said hi to the friend, and then she said hi to me. And I was like, hi, it's great to see you. We literally had a falling out. We're not friends anymore. But it was just that cordial interaction of we may not be friends, but you're still a person and I'm going to be nice to you. And I am so happy that I've adopted this as a habit because this isn't even just a cultural shift. This is a whole personality shift. And number 7, I am way more direct now. In the US, as you probably know, everyone is a special snowflake. Everyone is their own unique character. Everyone is amazing. Everyone is so talented. Everyone is so great. Because God forbid, if you say the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time, you're canceled. And I'm not hating on Americans because I am one and I do love my home. I love my friends. There's a lot of things that I think we do right, but something that I think we do really, really wrong is letting this cultural norm of beating around the bush exist. So in the US, for example, if someone hurt my feelings because for whatever reason they did something that I didn't like, I wouldn't necessarily tell them right away because I would be thinking of the social situation in which it happened in. Would this make it for a really uncomfortable time for the other people around? How are they going to react because are they going through something else in their life? Would this make me look like a crybaby or weaken how people see me as a person? Meaning like if I'm showing off too much emotion, are people going to think less of me? Am I going to look like the bad guy? Am I being too confrontational? All of these questions were circulating in my head always whenever someone would do anything that even slightly annoyed me. And the main difference between living in America and living in Spain, specifically Madrid, is that when someone does something that I don't appreciate, I will immediately call it out. Like I learned this trait when I was in the Netherlands. They call it the Dutch directness or Dutch bluntness. 110%. The Spanish have it too. The Germans have it too. The French have it too. It's just called something different. It's approached in a different way, but it's a different side of the same coin. And I really love that I'm now in this kind of community where I will have a Spanish roommate who, if I accidentally snap at her because I'm mad and then I'm just projecting, she doesn't let that slide. She says, no, you don't talk to me that way. And then we continue on with our day. It doesn't cause a stunt in our friendship. We're still friends. She's just setting that boundary because out here, they're really comfortable doing that. And in the US, I've noticed that to have a boundary, you're almost seen as the bad guy. And it's the same thing with my Belgian friend as well. If she has something that's on her mind and she's not happy about it, she'll be the first one to let you know. And it's not because she wants to start a fight, it's because she doesn't want to start a fight. So it's easier to get it out in the open as soon as it happens instead of letting it boil up and fester up over weeks or months. And I know that as I'm saying all these things, you may be thinking, well, yeah, Danny, this sounds really logical. Why would this be a habit that you're surprised that you have? This is like a normal person. When you're raised in a certain kind of society where the norm is toxic, but the norm is the norm, and the norm has been your social conditioning since birth, it is extremely hard to break from that mentality, especially if you are more on the type A side of the personality spectrum like myself. Like genuinely, anyone that knows me knows how much I value my schedule. If something isn't booked in, I am very Dutch in this nature. I fully won't do it. I don't care if it sounds fun. I don't care if I'll be missing out on something. I'm very, very set on my schedule. I'm very set in routine. And inherently speaking, change is very scary because already if you are moving abroad, you're going to be in a new culture. You're probably going to have to learn a new language. You're going to have to learn a completely new way of life, like even down to the schedules in which they eat their meals. The simplest things that make up our human existence are probably going to be challenged for you. And it's going to feel really scary, really overwhelming, really intimidating. And when you look at it from that that lens, picking up those habits that are scaring you feels impossible because why would I ever adopt to something that's causing me this much stress? And when I first moved out here, I thought the same thing. Every one of the 7 things that I just said, I looked down upon it at a certain point of time. I thought it was so rude that people would just be so direct. I used to think, can't you just be a good person and actually consider the other person's feelings? But they are considering the other person's feelings because if you let it fester and boil up like it did in the States, then it blows up. I used to think really badly of the staring culture, as I mentioned. Why are you looking at me? Keep your eyes to yourself. But space has given me time to realize that in the US, we just have a completely different paradigm in how we view ourselves in the bigger picture and where we view other people within that grand scheme. And the paradigm in Europe is so completely different that some of these habits you may really resonate with, others you may not. But it really does go to show that no matter how stubborn you think you are, you can always change. And living in a new area, it will be very scary. It will be quite intense, but it will be the best thing to ever happen to you. So I don't know who needed to hear this. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not trying to sound like one, but I really hope you heard this. And I hope this has been helpful if you are European to kind of understand a little bit more of the American mentality. I come from Pennsylvania, which is on the East Coast. More specifically, I was in the suburbs of Philadelphia. So my experience could very much differ from someone that's living in Oklahoma, California, Utah. But at any rate, thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you soon.